Hi all, I'm Vladimir, you're watching the BimDoc channel. Today's video will be very technical about virginizing the cluster in order to retrofit that to your BMW. If you have no idea what does virginizing mean, why some companies do charge you a lot of money to do that procedure, you'll see that in today's video, so stay tuned. So today I will be working with the cluster for BMW. The owner of the BMW, it is F11, that's 5 Series, wants to retrofit another cluster that's way better than his one. On 5 Series there are 3 types of different clusters. The regular one, the middle one, the extended one, it's also called the black panel. You can recognize that by that one. So there is screen down there and fully digital cluster. In order to exchange the cluster in your BMW, the procedure will be exactly the same. It doesn't matter if you want to exchange the cluster on your E series, F series or G series. You just have to use the proper tools. You have to know certain rules, how you should approach, and then you'll be good. The most important rule about the clusters: never, I repeat again, never put the cluster that is not prepared for a vehicle into your vehicle. Why? Because in the cluster there are very important information like car mileage. If the cluster was virginized not correctly, for example, only the car VIN code was erased, but the mileage was not corrected. If the mileage of that cluster is higher than the mileage in your car, what will happen, guess? Of course, your car will take the mileage from the cluster. So that's why your mileage will be increased instantly, and that will be very hard to fix that. That's why today I'll show you the full procedure of virginizing the ECU on BMW. As I said previously, it doesn't matter what series, the principle will be exactly the same. So if you're aiming to retrofit, for example, full digital cluster, and at the moment we can see it's not fully digital, it's half digital, the procedure will be the same. So watch the video until the end. First, what is virginizing of the ECU? Some ECUs in the BMWs can be retrofitted really easily. You can just exchange that and code it to the vehicle, and that's it. Some ECUs are not as simple. The cluster is one of those. There are 2 sorts of important information stored in the cluster. The one is the VIN code and the second is the mileage. The really important principle to follow: before you can plug another ECU, another cluster into a BMW, make sure it is virginized. What does it mean by virginizing? The VIN code should be erased and the mileage should be also erased. With the mileage there's actually a couple exceptions. VIN code should be erased for sure. The mileage can be left or can be erased. When to do what? If the mileage in the ECU you are going to retrofit is lower than the mileage in your car, then mileage should not be erased. If you don't know the mileage of the car you want to retrofit, for example, I received that cluster via the email, not email, via the regular post, and I don't know the mileage of the actual car that you're going to retrofit. I'll just zero the mileage to the 0, and the cluster in the future will take the mileage from the car. As I said in the introduction, video will be very technical. For that job, what tools you require? We will definitely need some kind of programmer, for example EEPROM, in order to virginize the cluster, or instead of that today I will use the CGPROM to do the same job. In addition to that, we'll require some kind another programmer, for example BIM2 Pro, in order to erase the mileage. Also, we will require some kind soldering station to take out the EEPROM, and some other smaller additional tools. You might probably wonder, hey BimDoc, how yourself can make the same job in the garage if you don't have all those tools? But be aware that education doesn't happen in the way that you first purchase the tools and then start learning. First, you have to gather the information. For example, for that cluster, you will require those and those tools, and only after that you can perform the job. Also, you can take that as an entertainment, so you will see how difficult or how easy that job is, and that's why you can estimate how much money can be charged for virginizing the cluster. If you still haven't subscribed to my channel, please do that. That will definitely help my channel to grow. Also, leave a comment with your estimation. Would you be able to do that job in your garage by yourself or not? You will see that by the end of the video. To make whatever complicated process easier, it is way better to divide that into the steps. I would divide the whole process of virginizing of the cluster into 4 steps. The first step will be disassembling the ECU. The second step will be soldering out the needed chip, that's called EEPROM. The third step will be erasing that, and the fourth step will be assembling everything back together. So let's proceed with the step one, disassembling the cluster. Actually, it is really straightforward. There are a couple screws and couple holders that are holding it. Just unscrew them and take everything apart. In order to save some of your time, I will just fast forward the disassembling process. If there are any special small details I would like to highlight, I will pause the video and make in regular pace. One very important difference between E-Series and all the newer BMWs that on E-Series, in order to access the EEPROM chip, we need to disassemble all those indicators because the EEPROM is located behind them. But on the F-Series, no, that disassemble is needed. Also on the G-Series, because the chip itself will be located on the back side of the panel. That's why it's way easier to work with the F and G-Series. The chip we need to access is on the back side of that plate. That's why we need to disassemble those connectors really carefully, and then we can unplug that board and you'll find the correct EEPROM. So this is the board we needed, so we can take that and put everything else to the side. It's always good to use whatever white paper and the gloves to work with the inner compartments of the ECUs, not to leave your fingerprints or anything there. So the EEPROM we'll be working with, actually there are two of those. That's the main one. I'll just attach the picture with the better quality and the exact location of those EEPROMs. So in that EEPROM there is stored mileage and the VIN code, and also in that EEPROM there is stored only a VIN code. So we'll need to desolder both of those and erase that information. Let's see how it's done. One more very important difference between the older ECUs and the newer one on BMWs, that on E-Series all the soldering done is with the regular soldering, and starting from the E-Series, BMW factory started to use lead-free soldering. What does it mean? It means in order to desolder whatever of the chips, the way higher temperature is needed. But you cannot just raise temperatures too high, because otherwise you will just melt the motherboard it's located on. That's why you will need to use the special metal. Actually it is alloy, it's called rose alloy. The melting temperature of that metal is lower than 100 degrees. How will it help us? I'll just put the small piece of that alloy near the EEPROM. It will melt at way lower temperature. It will surround all the EEPROM, all the chip, and that will save me a lot of time desoldering that chip, because desoldering the chip without the rose alloy will be very complicated. Because that's not the lesson how to properly solder or desolder everything. You'll see that in fast forward process. If you have any questions left, please leave them in the comments. As you can see, all the rose alloy is collected into that copper. It's very handy to use that, so highly recommended use that. So step 1 disassembling completed, step 2 soldering out is completed. Now the most important step, step 3. For that we'll require different sort of programmers. Today our main programmer will be CTGI Pro. We'll be working with that. So let's have a look. For better scale, I have used the key of my BMW so you can see how small are the EEPROMs. There are two of those. We will be working with that one. That was our left one, the main one. The model of that is 160 DOG. It is written there. I have made a picture for you so you can see it better. For each type of EEPROM, you have separate that kind of board you will attach to your programmer, and you will be working with that. On that programmer, there are two possibilities. You can either solder that EEPROM to that location. Your pin number 1 should be located over here, or if you're attaching into that slot, your pin number 1 is top left corner. On all of the EEPROMs, the pin 1 will be down left. How to find that? If you look into the EEPROM, so all the letters and numbers are towards you, so down left is pin number 1. We have connected everything together. EEPROM is in our special slot, connected to the programmer. We'll start the special software, and of course I'll switch to the laptop screen for a better convenience. So we have to choose. We are working with the dashboard. It is BMW, and from here we have to select what type of EEPROM we're working with. The type can be seen on the chip itself. It is 35160. There are two modes, 1 and 2. Let's take the first one. It tells us we need to use that kind of adapter. Yes, it is our adapter, that's correct. We can click back, and if everything is fine, we can press read over here. Let's press read. Communication successful, operation complete, everything has been read out. And it offers us to save it to the desktop. Let's write it is orig, so it's original, not modified. Save successful. So we have successfully read out all the information. As you can see, the mileage of that cluster is depicted over here. We'll definitely need to erase that. Otherwise, it's not allowed to put that cluster into the vehicle. The mileage is stored in the first two portions of the EEPROM. This is encrypted portion. Not all the programmers can erase that. The second thing we'll need to erase is the VIN code. As you can see here, VIN code, it is 17-digit long and is located over here. Sometimes there can be two different types, VIN short or VIN long. If we have VIN long, it will be all the 17 digits, as you can see here, starting with W and ending with 0. That will be exactly the 17 digits. We have to replace all those with the F letters, because FF stands for 0 in programming language. Also, we need to erase remainings of the VIN code. From VIN long, we can see that the last 7 digits starts with delta 86070. And we will scroll down until we see something very similar. We're scrolling down, and if you have enough experience, your eye will catch that. This is not the VIN code, definitely, but there should be at least one more VIN short stored somewhere. Actually, you can see delta 800 670. So this portion is VIN short. It also has to be replaced with all the F letters. So as I told you in the beginning, the virginizing is erasing the mileage and the VIN codes. So let's erase the mileage first, but be aware, erasing the mileage is kind of dangerous trick because not all programmers are able to do that. If your programmer is not capable of that, you can just ruin that EEPROM, and without that EEPROM, that cluster will not work. So this is a risky procedure. Let's press that button, input the new mileage. We can put 0, press OK. Okay, it suggests not to put a 0, but 16 kilometers. You can make it, no problem. Let's make 16. And it starts writing. It will try to bypass the security. It is written, it takes from 5 to 20 minutes. Not a problem. Let's just wait for that to finish. Meanwhile, our programmer is still erasing the EEPROM part, actual incremental part where the mileage is written. We will not waste any time because we have another EEPROM to work with. As you can see in that box with that programmer, there is a lot of different adapters included. We'll require that one. I'll zoom it in for you in a second. For the second EEPROM, we'll just solder another EEPROM over here, then we can attach it to our programmer and we can work with that also. So as you can see, I have soldered that EEPROM to another adapter, and over here it's exactly the same. So the lower left corner of your writings will be the pin number 1. If you mismatch the pins and you will connect that adapter to the EEPROM, you will just burn your EEPROM in the best case. That's why do not mismatch the pin number 1, it is critical. So now we are still waiting for the first EEPROM to be erased. It is 86% of the job done. Bypassing the security just takes some time. Meanwhile, we have prepared another EEPROM. That's why as soon as the first one will be finished, we can start working with the second one. For you, it was just a couple seconds, but actually for me, I have spent a couple hours trying to break that EEPROM to rewrite the mileage over there. In my videos, I always prefer you to give the fullest information that's possible. That's why actually we have a small problem today. That programmer, the CG Pro, it is stated that it's able to erase that EEPROM we're working currently with. It is 35160, but actually it is not able to. Remember, just a couple minutes ago, I was trying to erase that. The programmer told it will take around from 5 to 20 minutes to erase that. I have run that process once, it gave me an error. I have made it twice, 3 times, 4 times, and actually I have spent a couple hours trying to erase that and no success with that. But it's not a big problem, we have a bypass for that. At the moment we have 2 options how to proceed. Option number 1. Remember, during the virginizing, I was telling you that we need to erase the VIN number. We have no problem with that, and the mileage. Actually, with the mileage there is a small correction. If the mileage in the cluster is lower than the car we're going to retrofit, that cluster, there is no need to erase the mileage because the cluster will take the mileage from the car itself. I have contacted the owner of the car where that cluster will be retrofitted in the future, and he told me, you know, Vladimir, the current mileage of my car is 290 kilometers, so it is way higher than the mileage we have at the moment in that cluster. That's why I will not try to erase that. But be aware that you might run into the situation where erasing of that mileage is still needed. How to proceed in that case? I was speaking with the guys who have the same programmers. Actually, they're telling that that programmer is able to erase that memory, but sometimes it might take up to maybe like 5 hours or 20 tries to erase that. That's a huge waste of time. As alternative, the VVDI Proc, it's another programmer, they have developed the special EEPROM. Actually, you can see that picture over here. It is replaceable EEPROM. It means that that's brand new EEPROM. You will read out information from your current EEPROM and write information to there, and there will be no problem with erasing the mileage and making it lower. So if you are unlucky and the mileage in your cluster you're going to retrofit is higher than you need, you have to either try with CGI Proc to erase that for a couple hours or just use another EEPROM. So those are 2 possibilities. So how we are going to proceed next? We have 2 EEPROMs, one is inserted over here and another is soldered to that location. On that EEPROM we have mileage stored because the mileage is lower than in the car that will be installed in the future. That's why we will not touch the mileage. We have 2 times VIN number written there. One is VIN long and another is VIN short. We will erase those. And in another EEPROM we have 2 times short VIN. We will replace that also with all F symbols, it means that we'll virginize that. And after that, when it's done, we'll write information to those and solder it back to the cluster. So one more time, selecting the needed EEPROM, it is dashboard, BMW, and we have that one. It says OK, yes, that's correct, and we should read it out. It reads out kind of fast. As you can see, I have already experimented with that, so I have written the bigger mileage there. It suggests us to save. Yes, always save whatever you read out. And actually, let's make it mileage. Let's make it 2345 kilometers. That's a good number. Kilometers, good. And let's save it. Save successful. So what we can make, for example, we can make the mileage I have just told before, 234500. Let's just make sure it's not too big. Yes, it's totally okay. We can press OK, and it starts writing it. As you can see, going upwards, operation completed, is no problem, but going down, that might be problem due to the security. So we have no problem with the mileage now. We need to erase the EEPROM. Instead of that wind long, we have to put the symbols, all the F symbols, instead all those. Yes, correct. And if you count those, that one and that one, it should be exact 17 symbols. So we have replaced the win long. We also have to search for win short. Win short is located over here. And let's replace that also with all the F signs. Yes, that's enough. Be careful not to erase too much. You can count it one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, that's correct. And there will be no more VIN number stored in that EEPROM. So that's enough. We can press save. And we will save that. Mileage is that one. And VIN is replaced with foxtrots. We just press save, save successfully, OK. And now we have to write the same information to the file. We just press write and OK. And it starts writing it. Operation completed. It's always good, for example, to close the program, open it again, and select everything again. And read it out and see if the written information is stored there properly. OK, we can press back and read out the information. After reading out, we should see our mileage. It's almost the same as we have entered. It's total OK. And we should not see the VIN number here. So remember, in the beginning there was a VIN number. It is not depicted here anymore. That's good. And also in the middle, where we had a VIN number, we also cannot see the VIN number anymore. So it means all the information is written correctly. Now let's change our chips. It's always good to remove the power before unplugging anything. Removing one and plugging in another. The EEPROM is soldered there, and now we can hook up the power. And power is running now, and we can start reading it out. Firing up the software again. Now there is a small difference. We have to use not the model, but you have to select chip, storage chip. It is 8-pin, correct? And in that list, we have to select our EEPROM. All the models are written on the EEPROM itself. We have 95320 over there, and just read it out. Always, whatever you read, you save it. We can save it as original. Press save. File successfully, that's good. Now we have to find for our VIN numbers. There will be no mileage in that anymore. And you can see the VIN number over here at that address. Yes, so that's, yes, 44. We can replace with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, that's correct. And there should be one more. And here you are. So we have to replace that also with all the F signs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's good. Now we have to save it. Do not resave the original file, never. Just save it as another one, WinFF. Press save, save successfully. And now we have to write it. Let's press write. OK. Operation completed, done. Step 3 has been completed. We have successfully changed the information inside the chips, inside our EEPROMs. Now will come step 4. We have to solder everything back together and assemble the cluster back together. There is nothing special in soldering all the parts back together and assembling back together, so I will just fast forward that. If you have any questions about certain steps or whatever, just feel free to ask in the comments. It's always a good idea to check the quality of your soldering with the bigger magnification. You can just see that all the EEPROMs, they have very good connection, and the same stuff if we'll see from another side, you can see the soldering is good. Now I have just to wash the board and that will be end. We are almost done. Before putting all the screws back together, it will be nice to see if the cluster is working or not. Actually, I forgot in the video to show you one moment. I have done, of course, before, but before disassembling whatever ECU, for example, the cluster, always power it up so you can see that it is actually working before you're going inside there. Otherwise, it will be just kind of awkward situation if the client will be telling you that, okay, actually it was working and it's not working after your work, so it's not professional. To power it up, I will use the Go Diag platform. It is the platform to work with the FEM or BDC ECUs on the table, but it also has one output that is meant for the cluster. So let's just connect all back. And you can see the mileage is exactly the one we have written there. So the cluster is working and it's fine. Now I can tell that that cluster has been virginized. It is virginized, all the VIN codes are erased, the mileage in that is lower than in the car we're going to retrofit that, so it's okay for that job. That will be not okay if the mileage of the car we're going to retrofit that cluster will be lower than that one. Then we will need another approach, but I have told about that in my video. Of course, just virginizing the cluster is not enough for that cluster to properly work in another BMW. For that, coding is needed. But believe me, compared to virginizing, the coding is a straightforward process. You just need to change your vehicle order and code the cluster. If you're interested in that kind of topic, please write that in the comments. I might make the video about that also. Thank you for watching that video till the end. Hit the like button if you did like that video. Also subscribe to my channel not to miss the future videos. See you in the future. Bye.